At 29, she knew better than to let her nerves show, even when it felt like her world was crumbling beneath her feet. The weight of her messenger bag pressed against her hip, containing everything she needed for her first day as a temporary administrative assistant. 1 week ago, she'd been a project manager. Now she was starting over, grateful for any position. That would keep her from moving back to her parents' house in Atlanta. The elevator chimed, and Anna stepped out into a corridor that screamed corporate power. The air conditioning hit her skin like a verdict, making her adjust the collar of her burnt orange blazer. Her box braids were swept into an elegant updo, a style that had taken hours to perfect. Time well spent when you're trying to make a flawless first impression. She glanced at her phone, checking the email with directions to her new workspace. The halls all looked identical, glass, steel, and eerily empty at this early hour. Left at the water cooler right at the conference room, then... Anna frowned. The landmarks mentioned in the email were nowhere to be found. "Keep it together," she whispered to herself, her voice barely disturbing the pressurized silence. The click of her low heels against the marble floor echoed through the maze-like corridors. Each wrong turn felt like another crack in her carefully maintained composure. After 10 minutes of increasingly frustrated wandering, Anna spotted a partially open door at the end of a hallway. Relief flooded through her. Finally, someone she could ask for directions. She approached, rehearsing her question in her head, making sure her voice would sound confident rather than lost. The door swung open smoothly under her touch. "Excuse me, I'm looking for..." The words died in her throat. The office was massive, with floor-to-ceiling windows offering a panoramic view of downtown. But it wasn't the view that stopped her cold. It was the man standing behind the imposing desk, his presence filling the room like a physical force. Ramon Alexander Owen turned from the window, his steel-blue eyes narrowing at the interruption. At 6'3", his frame cut an impressive silhouette against the morning sky. His custom-tailored charcoal suit couldn't quite hide the athletic build underneath, the result of pre-dawn workouts that were as much about discipline as fitness. His clean-shaven head and perfectly trimmed beard gave him an air of intentional authority. Anna felt the full weight of his gaze like a tangible thing. Every instinct screamed at her to apologize and retreat, but something kept her rooted to the spot. Perhaps it was the way he looked at her, not with the immediate dismissal she expected, but with an intensity that seemed to peel away her layers of careful composure. "This isn't the HR department," he stated, his voice low and measured. There was no anger in his tone, just a clinical observation that somehow made it worse. "No, it's not." Anna's response came out steadier than she felt. "I apologize for the intrusion. The directions I received..." She paused, refusing to make excuses. "I'll find my way." She turned to leave, her dignity wrapped around her like armor, when his voice stopped her. "You're new." It wasn't a question, but Anna answered anyway. "First day, temporary administrative position." She met his gaze again, and something flickered in those cold eyes. Recognition, perhaps, or curiosity. "2 floors down," he said after a moment. "Take the north elevator bank. Ask for Naomi Becker." "Thank you, Mr. Owen." The fact that she knew his name without introduction didn't seem to surprise him. Everyone in the building would know who he was. As Anna closed the door behind her, she felt the ghost of his gaze between her shoulder blades. The encounter left her with an unsettling sensation, not of embarrassment or fear, but of something shifting, like tectonic plates moving beneath the surface of her carefully ordered world. In his office, Ramon remained standing, his attention fixed on the closed door. In 15 years of building his empire, he had never been caught off guard by anyone walking into his office. Security protocols, executive assistants, and his own reputation ensured that no one simply wandered in. Yet there had been something in the way she carried herself. No fumbling apologies, no desperate attempts to explain or impress. Just quiet dignity and direct honesty. He found himself running through the mental database of recent hires, trying to place her name, her department, her story. Anna found the HR department exactly where Ramon had directed her. As she introduced herself to Naomi Becker, a willowy woman with diplomatic grace and watchful green eyes, she made no mention of her detour to the CEO's office. But throughout the morning orientation, as she learned procedures and protocols, her mind kept drifting back to that encounter. She had spent years learning to make herself smaller, to move through spaces without drawing attention. It was a survival skill in corporate America, especially for someone who had fought twice as hard for half the recognition. But in that office, facing Ramon Owen, she had felt something she hadn't experienced in a long time, the urge to stand her full height, to take up space, to be seen. The thought terrified her. By lunchtime, Naomi had taken Anna under her wing, showing her the break room and introducing her to key personnel. "You're catching on quickly," she observed, stirring her tea. "Most temps take days to get oriented." "I've had practice starting over," Anna replied, earning a thoughtful look from her new supervisor. As they returned to the office, Anna caught a glimpse of Ramon striding through the lobby, surrounded by executives. He moved like a man accustomed to parting crowds, his presence commanding attention without seeking it. For a fraction of a second, his eyes met hers across the marble expanse. Neither of them acknowledged the morning's encounter, but something had changed in the air of Maxwell Industries. Like a butterfly causing hurricanes, their brief meeting had set something in motion, something that would eventually shake the foundations of both their carefully constructed worlds. Hannah spent the rest of the afternoon learning systems and procedures, her exterior showing nothing but professional focus. But internally, she was acutely aware that somewhere above her, 42 floors up, was a man who had seen past her careful invisibility. And despite everything she knew about survival and safety, a part of her wondered what it would be like to be truly seen again. As she packed up her desk at day's end, Anna's phone buzzed with a text from her mother. "How was your first day, baby?" She stared at the screen, thinking about wrong turns and right moments, about power and vulnerability, about the way life sometimes takes you exactly where you need to go by getting completely lost. "Interesting," she typed back. "Very interesting." The word felt inadequate, but how could she explain that by walking through the wrong door, she might have finally found her way to something real? That in trying to remain invisible, she had never been more seen. Anna looked up at the ceiling, knowing that somewhere above her, past layers of concrete and steel, was an office where everything had shifted. She squared her shoulders, gathered her things and headed for the elevator. Tomorrow would be another day of careful navigation, of maintaining boundaries and professional distance. But for now, in the quiet of the evening elevator, Anna allowed herself to feel the full weight of the day's events, and the whispered possibility that sometimes getting lost is the first step to being found. 2 weeks into her temporary position at Maxwell Industries, Anna had mastered the art of strategic invisibility. She learned the rhythms of the building, when to take the service elevator to avoid crowds, which corridors were least traveled, how to time her lunch breaks, to minimize interaction. Yet somehow she couldn't avoid the magnetic pull of the 42nd floor. It wasn't that she sought him out, quite the opposite, but in a tower of steel and glass, paths had a way of crossing, especially when you're trying your hardest to stay apart. The first time it happened was in the parking garage. Anna was running late, having spent an extra hour organizing files for a department audit. The underground lot was nearly empty, her footsteps echoing off concrete walls as she headed for the bus stop. The purr of an engine caught her attention, a sleek black Aston Martin, its headlights cutting through the dim light. She recognized Ramon before he saw her. He was speaking into his phone, his voice carrying that same quiet authority she remembered from his office. "The Singapore deal isn't negotiable. They either meet our terms by morning, or we walk." A pause. "No, I don't care about their timeline. This is business, not a charity." The word charity hit Anna like a physical blow, reminding her of all the assumptions people made about temporary workers, about women who looked like her, about the distance between his world and hers. She quickened her pace, but the click of her heels betrayed her presence. Ramon looked up, his conversation halting mid-sentence. Their eyes met in the rearview mirror, and for a moment, the garage seemed to shrink around them. He ended his call without ceremony, rolling down his window. "Ms. Ellis," his voice echoed in the empty space. "It's late, Budget reports wait for no one, Mr. Owen. She kept walking, refusing to be intimidated by the luxury car or its driver. Let me give you a ride. The offer hung in the air between them, loaded with unspoken implications. Anna stopped, turned, met his gaze directly. Thank you, but I prefer the bus. Keeps me grounded. Something flickered across his face. Amusement, perhaps, or respect. Grounded is overrated. So is floating too high. She allowed herself a small smile, professional but pointed. Good night, Mr. Owen. As she walked away, she heard him chuckle, a sound so unexpected it almost made her stumble. Almost. The next morning, Naomi cornered her by the coffee machine. You're making waves, you know. Her voice was low, concerned. Not big ones. But they're there. I'm just doing my job, Anna replied, measuring her creamer with precision. That's not what I mean. Naomi glanced around before continuing. Ramon asked about you, about your background, your contract terms. Anna's hand stilled over her coffee cup. Why? He said it was about resource allocation, but... Naomi's green eyes studied her friend's face. I've worked here 5 years. He's never asked about a temp before. Before Anna could respond, their conversation was interrupted by the arrival of other employees. But Naomi's words stayed with her, a warning wrapped in friendly concern. Later that day, Anna was delivering reports to various departments when she encountered him again. The elevator opened on the 42nd floor. Someone had pressed the wrong button. And there he stood, his presence filling the small space like smoke. She almost stepped back, almost waited for the next car, but his slight nod drew her in. The doors closed with a soft chime, leaving them alone in the suspended box of steel and silence. How are you finding the position, Miss Ellis? His voice was professionally neutral, but his eyes watched her reflection in the elevator walls. It's exactly what I expected. She kept her gaze forward, her posture perfect. Temporary. Nothing has to be temporary unless we choose it to be. The words sent a shiver down her spine, not from fear but from the dangerous possibility they represented. Some choices aren't ours to make, Mr. Owen. I disagree. He turned to face her fully. Every choice is ours. The consequences, that's what we don't always control. The elevator stopped at her floor, the doors opening to reveal a corridor full of busy employees. Anna stepped out, then paused. And what if the consequences affect more than just ourselves? She left him with that question, feeling his gaze, follow her until the doors closed again. That evening, Anna stayed late again, but this time it wasn't about work. She sat at her desk, staring at her laptop screen, at the email she'd received from her former employer. They were offering her old job back, not the same position, but something similar with better pay and benefits. In Atlanta, near family, safe. Her phone buzzed with a text from her mother. Baby, you don't have to prove anything to anyone. Come home. But it wasn't about proving anything anymore. It was about the way her heart raced every time the elevator passed. The 42nd floor. About the magnetic pull of possibility. About the danger of wanting something, someone, so far beyond her carefully constructed boundaries. A shadow fell across her desk. She looked up to find Naomi standing there, coat in hand. Walk with me? They ended up in a small coffee shop around the corner, the kind of place where conversations could get lost in the ambient noise of espresso machines and indie music. I need to tell you something, Naomi began, her usually diplomatic tone edged with worry. There's talk about making some positions permanent, good positions with real potential for growth. Anna waited, sensing there was more. Ramon is personally reviewing the candidates. Naomi wrapped her hands around her cup. And I'm afraid you're going to get hurt. Because I'm temporary. Because you're real. Naomi leaned forward. In this tower of glass and pretense, you're authentically yourself. And that's dangerous. Anna thought about the job offer in Atlanta, about her mother's text, about elevator rides and parking garage conversations, about the way Ramon looked at her, not as a temporary employee or a potential conquest, but as someone who reflected back his own carefully hidden truth. Maybe dangerous is exactly what this place needs, she said finally. Naomi sat back, a mix of admiration and concern in her expression. Just be careful. Men like Ramon Owen don't just control companies, they control narratives. And in their stories, everyone else is just a supporting character. Then maybe it's time for a new story. Anna's voice was quiet but firm. One where we write our own roles. That night, as she rode the bus home, Anna made her decision. She declined the Atlanta offer with a polite email and a silent prayer that she wasn't making the biggest mistake of her life. In his penthouse office, Ramon stood at the window, watching the city lights flicker like earthbound stars. On his desk lay Anna's personnel file, thin, professional, unremarkable, except for the fire he'd seen in her eyes. His phone buzzed, with messages about the Singapore deal, about board meetings, about the 1,000 things that demanded his attention. But his mind kept returning to her words in the elevator, about choices and consequences, about the weight of responsibility that came with power, about the dangerous allure of something real in a world built on careful illusions. He picked up his phone, scrolled to a number he'd memorized but never called. His finger hovered over the keypad. Sometimes, the most powerful choices were the ones you didn't make, not yet. The quarterly board meeting at Maxwell Industries loomed like a storm on the horizon. Anna could feel the tension crackling through the building as she organized the presentation materials, each page weighted with numbers that could make or break careers. Her temporary status didn't shield her from the pressure. If anything, it made her more aware of how precarious her position was. She was reviewing the final draft of the financial projections when her computer screen flickered. The document she'd spent hours perfecting vanished, replaced by an error message. Her heart stopped. No, no, no. Her fingers flew across the keyboard, but nothing responded. The backup should have saved automatically, but when she checked the server, the entire folder was corrupted. Having trouble? The voice made her jump. Ramon stood in the doorway of the small office she shared with 2 other temps, his presence immediately commanding the space. He wore a navy suit that probably cost more than her monthly rent, but it was his expression that caught her attention, a mixture of concern and something else she couldn't quite read. The Q3 projections, she explained, maintaining her composure despite the panic rising in her throat. The files are corrupted, all of them. He crossed the room in 3 long strides, leaning over her desk to look at the screen. His cologne, subtle, expensive, masculine, clouded her senses for a dangerous moment. When was the last backup? That's just it. There should have been an automatic backup every hour, but it's gone. Everything's gone. Their eyes met in the reflection of the dark screen. For a moment, neither spoke, both aware of how this looked. A temporary employee losing crucial board meeting documents less than 24 hours before presentation. Come with me, he said finally, straightening up. It wasn't a request. Anna followed him to the elevator, her mind racing. She'd heard stories about people being escorted out of the building. Their careers ended in the time it took to ride down 42 floors. But instead of going down, they went up. Ramon's office was exactly as she remembered it from that first day, except now the late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the polished floor. He went straight to his desk, logged into his computer and motioned her over. Look, he said, turning the screen toward her. On it was a copy of the missing presentation, intact and updated. I make my own backups, trust but verify. It's kept me alive in this business. Relief flooded through her, followed immediately by suspicion. You had access to my work? I have access to everything in this building. His voice was matter of fact, but his eyes held a challenge. The question is, why did your files mysteriously corrupt the day before the board meeting? Anna's mind raced back through the past few weeks. The whispers when she passed certain desks, the way some senior managers looked at her, not with disdain, but with calculation. You think someone... I think, Ramon interrupted, standing so close she could feel the heat radiating from his body, that you've made some people nervous. I'm a temp, she said, but even as the words left her mouth, she knew they weren't true. Not anymore. Not after the way she'd caught him looking at her in meetings, not after their charged encounters in elevators and parking garages, Not after the rumors that had started circulating about permanent positions. "You're extraordinary," he corrected her, the words falling between them like stones in still water. "And that makes you dangerous." Before she could respond, his office door opened. Naomi stood there, her face a mask of professional concern that slipped for just a moment when she saw how close they were standing. "Mr. Owen, the preliminary board numbers are ready for your review." Her eyes flickered to Anna. "And HR needs to discuss the temporary contract extensions." Ramon didn't move away immediately, his gaze holding Anna's for one more heated moment, before he turned to Naomi. "Schedule the HR meeting for tomorrow after the board presentation." After Naomi left, Anna gathered her courage. "Why are you helping me?" "Because you don't ask for help." He moved to the window, his silhouette sharp against the dying light. "Because you do excellent work without seeking recognition. Because you look at me and see past the title to something that—" He paused, his jaw tightening. "Something that I've spent years trying to bury. Your humanity." The words slipped out before she could stop them. He turned, and the look in his eyes made her breath catch. "My weakness." Later that evening, Anna sat in the empty break room, processing the day's events over a cup of cold coffee. Naomi found her there, closing the door behind her with unusual carefulness. "You're playing with fire," she said without preamble. "I'm not playing at all." Anna met her friend's concerned gaze. "That's the problem, isn't it?" Naomi sank into the chair across from her. "The board meeting tomorrow. There's going to be an announcement about restructuring, several high-level positions opening up." She hesitated. "Ramon specifically requested your file be included in the consideration pool." "Without asking me? Would you have said yes if he had?" The question hung in the air, heavy with implications. Anna thought about the way he'd looked at her in his office, about the electricity that crackled between them every time they were alone, about the dangerous thrill of being seen, truly seen, by someone who understood what it meant to wear masks. "They're going to try to stop it," Naomi continued softly. "The old guard doesn't like change, especially when it comes wrapped in someone they can't control." "Is that what this is about? Control?" "Isn't it always?" Naomi stood, smoothing her skirt. "Just whatever you decide, make sure it's your decision. Not his, not theirs, not anyone's, but yours." That night, Anna worked late again, restoring the files from Ramon's backup. The office was empty, except for the cleaning staff and the occasional security guard. She told herself she was just being thorough, professional, prepared, but part of her waited, hoped, feared that he might appear again. When the elevator dinged at midnight, her heart jumped, but it was just the cleaning lady, Maria, with her cart of supplies. "Burning the midnight oil again, Miss Ellis?" Maria's kind eyes crinkled with knowing sympathy. "Some fires burn brighter in the dark, no?" Anna smiled, thinking of Ramon's words. "Your weakness. And some lights are meant to stay hidden." "Ah, but hidden things have a way of finding their way to the surface." Maria began wiping down the desks. "Like water, like truth, like love." "This isn't love," Anna said quickly, too quickly. "No?" Maria's laugh was soft, knowing. "Then why do you tremble when I mention it?" In his penthouse apartment across town, Ramon stood at his floor-to-ceiling windows, phone pressed to his ear. "I want everything you can find on the system breach, every login, every keystroke." He listened for a moment. "No, this stays between us. For now." He ended the call, his reflection staring back at him from the dark glass. In 12 hours, he would stand before the board and propose changes that would shake the foundation of Maxwell Industries. In 12 hours, he would put his reputation, his authority, and his carefully constructed walls on the line. And for what? For a woman who made him question everything he'd built his life around. For a pair of brown eyes that saw through his armor. For the maddening, intoxicating possibility of something real. His phone buzzed with a message from the head of HR. "Reconsider the Ellis promotion. Board won't approve. Too risky." Ramon typed back 2 words. "Watch me." In her small apartment, Anna finally allowed herself to cry. Not from fear or weakness, but from the overwhelming weight of standing at a crossroads. Every path forward was laced with danger. Accept the promotion and face the wolves. Reject, it and lose the chance to prove herself, pursue whatever was building between her and Ramon, and risk everything she'd worked for. Her phone lit up with a text from an unknown number. Some choices change everything. Make yours count. R. She stared at the message until her screen went dark, her reflection showing a woman on the brink of either triumph or disaster. Tomorrow would decide which. But tonight, in the quiet darkness of her room, Anna allowed herself to admit what she'd been fighting for weeks. She was falling for the one man who could either elevate her to new heights or bring her world crashing down. And the scariest part, she wasn't sure which outcome terrified her more. The morning of the board meeting dawned cold and clear, the kind of autumn day that promised change in the air. Anna arrived at Maxwell Industries 2 hours early, her charcoal, pencil skirt and deep purple blouse, chosen with careful consideration. Her mother had always told her that clothes were armor, and today she needed every defense she could muster. The security guard, Michael, looked up from his crossword puzzle as she crossed the lobby. "Early bird catches more than worms today. Ms. Ellis? We'll see what it catches," she replied, forcing a smile she didn't feel. The elevator ride to her floor felt longer than usual, each floor a countdown to what promised to be the most significant morning of her career. When the doors opened, she was surprised to find she wasn't the first one in. Light spilled from under Naomi's office door. She found her friend surrounded by stacks of personnel files, her usually perfect hair slightly disheveled. "You look like you've been here all night." "Almost." Naomi didn't look up from her computer. The board requested complete employment histories for all promotion candidates, 10 years back. Now she did look up, her green eyes sharp with concern. "They're looking for anything they can use." Anna's stomach tightened. "Against me?" "Against Ramon." Naomi stood, stretching her tired muscles. "Your promotion isn't just about you anymore. It's become a symbol of his judgment, his priorities." She paused, choosing her next words carefully. "There are people on the board who think he's becoming compromised." The word hung in the air like smoke. Anna thought about Ramon's text from the night before, about the way he'd looked at her in his office, about all the lines they'd been careful not to cross but somehow had anyway. "They're wrong," she said finally. "Are they?" Naomi's voice was gentle. "Anna, I've known Ramon for 5 years. I've never seen him risk anything for anyone until you." Before Anna could respond, her phone buzzed with a message from HR. "Board meeting moved to 9 a.m. Attendance mandatory." She checked the time, 7:30. 90 minutes to prepare for whatever was coming. The next hour passed in a blur of last-minute preparations. Anna triple-checked the presentation materials, reviewed her notes until the numbers danced before her eyes, and tried not to think about the weight of what was about to happen. At 8:45, the elevator opened on the 42nd floor. Ramon stood in his private conference room, his back to the door as he gazed out at the city below. He turned at her entrance, and for a moment, his carefully maintained facade cracked. "You shouldn't be here," he said, but made no move to send her away. "The files are ready." She set the presentation folder on the table between them. "Everything's in order." "Anna." The way he said her name, dropping the formal Ms. Ellis for the first time, made her heart stutter. "What happens in there?" He stepped closer, close enough that she could see the tension in his jaw, the subtle signs of a sleepless night. "I need you to understand something." "I understand everything," she interrupted, surprising them both with her directness. "I understand that my career is on the line. I understand that your authority is being questioned. I understand that everyone in this building is watching us, waiting for one of us to make a mistake." She met his gaze steadily. "What I don't understand is why you're willing to risk everything for someone you barely know." His laugh was soft, almost bitter. "Barely know? I know that you take your coffee black with 1 sugar. I know that you stay late not because you have to, but because you believe in doing things right. I know that when you look at me, you see past all the walls I've built, and it terrifies me." He ran a hand over his face. "I know you better than people I've worked with for decades." The door opened before she could respond. Lawrence Blackwood, head of the board, stood there with several other executives. His smile didn't reach his eyes. "Ramon, the board is ready." Ms. Ellis, your presence won't be necessary after all. Something in his tone made Anna's spine stiffen. She looked at Ramon, saw the subtle shift in his posture, from the man who had just bared his soul to the CEO, who commanded respect. Ms. Ellis stays. Ramon's voice was steel. She prepared the presentation. Actually, Lawrence's smile widened fractionally, we have some concerns about that presentation, and about your judgment regarding certain personnel matters. The next hour was a masterclass in corporate warfare. The board had come armed not just with questions about the quarterly numbers, but with a carefully constructed narrative of Ramon's supposed decline in judgment. They painted a picture of a CEO distracted by personal interests, making decisions based on emotion rather than business acumen. They questioned every promotion recommendation, but saved their sharpest barbs. For Anna's candidacy, words like inexperienced and inappropriate were wielded like weapons, each one designed to cut deeper than the last. Through it all, Ramon remained outwardly calm, but Anna could see the storm building behind his eyes. When Lawrence suggested that perhaps it was time to re-evaluate the company's leadership structure, the tension in the room became almost unbearable. Enough. Ramon's voice cut through the boardroom like a blade. If you want to question my leadership, do it directly. Don't hide behind implications and innuendo. Very well, Lawrence leaned forward. We believe your personal interest in Ms. Ellis has compromised your ability to make sound business decisions. The board is prepared to call a vote of no confidence unless certain changes are made immediately. The silence that followed was deafening. Anna felt the weight of every eye in the room, heard the unspoken ultimatum, her or his career. She stood, her chair scraping against the floor with frightening finality. I resign. Anna, don't. Ramon's voice carried a note she'd never heard before, something close to pleading. This isn't about me, she said, though they both knew it was a lie. This is about the company, about leadership, about making the right choice. She turned to the board. You want to question Mr. Owen's judgment? Look at the quarterly numbers, look at the growth projections, look at the innovation initiatives he's implemented. But don't you dare use me as an excuse to grab power you haven't earned. She walked out of the boardroom with her head high, ignoring the murmurs that followed her. In the elevator, she finally allowed her hands to shake, her carefully constructed composure cracking like thin ice. Naomi was waiting at her desk. One look at Anna's face told her everything she needed to know. You did it, didn't you? It wasn't really a question. You fell on your sword to protect him. I protected myself, Anna corrected, beginning to pack her personal items. They were never going to let me succeed here. Not really. He'll come. After you, Naomi warned. Ramon doesn't let go easily. Anna paused, her hand hovering over a framed photo of her parents. Some things aren't meant to be held on to. As she walked through the lobby for the last time, Michael, the security guard, called out, Leaving early today, Miss Ellis? She stopped, looked back at the soaring tower of glass and steel that had briefly held all her dreams. No, she said, softly. I think I'm right on time. In the boardroom, Ramon stood at the window, watching Anna's figure disappear into the crowd below. Behind him, Lawrence was still talking about leadership transitions and corporate stability. Without turning, Ramon cut him off mid-sentence. The vote won't be necessary. His voice was deadly quiet. Because I'm calling for an emergency shareholder meeting. Tomorrow morning, we'll let them decide who's really acting in the company's best interests. He turned to face the suddenly silent board members, his expression carved from stone. You wanted to see my judgment? Watch what happens when you force me to choose between power and principle. The gauntlet had been thrown, and in its echo, both Anna and Ramon knew that while one chapter had ended, another, more dangerous, more passionate, more real, was about to begin. 3 days after walking out of Maxwell Industries, Anna sat in her favorite coffee shop, staring at her laptop screen. Her email inbox was a battlefield of unread messages, most from recruiters who'd somehow caught wind of her departure, several from Naomi, and one that made her heart stop every time she saw it. We need to talk, Yar. The barista, Danny, brought her third cappuccino without being asked. You know, most people who quit their jobs actually stop working. I'm not working, Anna replied, closing her laptop. I'm hiding. From what I heard, you did the opposite of hiding. Danny leaned against the counter. Word travels fast in corporate circles. They're saying you stood up to the entire board of Maxwell Industries. Anna sighed, wrapping her hands around the warm cup. They're probably also saying I was sleeping with the CEO. Actually, a familiar voice said from behind her, they're saying I was sleeping with you. Anna turned to find Naomi sliding into the seat across from her, looking impeccable as always in a cream-colored suit. There's a difference. Intent. Naomi signaled Danny for coffee. In their version, you're the predator, not the prey. It fits their narrative better. She paused as Danny brought her usual vanilla latte. Ramon called an emergency shareholder meeting yesterday. I know. It's all over the financial news. Anna had been avoiding the coverage, but headlines like Maxwell Industries leadership crisis and tech giant's CEO under fire were hard to miss. What you don't know, Naomi continued, her voice dropping, is that he presented evidence about the corrupted files, about Lawrence's behind-the-scenes power plays, about systematic attempts to undermine promising employees who didn't fit the board's preferred profile. Anna's hands tightened around her cup. How long? Years. Lawrence and his allies have been quietly blocking promotions, manipulating performance reviews, even creating hostile work environments to force out anyone they saw as a threat to their power structure. Naomi pulled out her phone, showing Anna a news alert. The shareholders voted to remove 3 board members, including Lawrence. The SEC is investigating. And Ramon? Unanimous vote of confidence. Naomi studied her friend's face. He burned a lot of bridges to do this, Anna. Called in favors, exposed long-standing relationships, risked everything. I didn't ask him to. No, Naomi agreed softly. That's probably why he did it. The coffee shop door chimed, and both women looked up to see a tall figure in a charcoal suit entering. Ramon's presence seemed to compress the space, drawing every eye in the room. He spotted them immediately but paused at the counter, exchanging words with Danny. That's my cue to leave, Naomi said, gathering her things. She squeezed Anna's hand. Whatever you decide, remember, you're not just choosing for yourself anymore. People are watching, learning, hoping. As Naomi passed Ramon at the counter, she paused. Whatever she said to him made his jaw tighten, but he nodded once, respectfully. He approached Anna's table with 2 fresh cups of coffee. Black, 1 sugar, he said, setting one in front of her. Some habits are hard to break. Like showing up unannounced, but she gestured to the empty chair, allowing him to sit. I called, I emailed, I even considered carrier pigeons. His attempt at humor felt forced, tension radiating from his rigid posture. You're not easy to reach when you don't want to be found. Maybe that's the point. She met his gaze steadily. What happened at the shareholder meeting? It wasn't about me. Wasn't it? He leaned forward, his voice dropping. Every decision I've made since you walked into my office that first day has been about you. Fighting it, denying it, trying to maintain professional distance, and failing spectacularly. We barely know each other, she protested, but the words sounded hollow even to her. Don't. His hand moved across the table, not quite touching hers, but close enough that she could feel the heat of his skin. Don't diminish what this is. What happened at Maxwell wasn't just about corporate politics or power plays. It was about change, the kind that terrifies people who've built their lives on maintaining the status quo. And what kind of change is that? The real kind. The kind that happens when someone like you forces someone like me to remember what it means to feel something genuine. He withdrew his hand, running it over his face. Do you know what Lawrence said to me after you left? He said I should thank him, that you were a liability, a distraction, a weakness that would have destroyed everything I built. Anna felt her throat tighten. Maybe he was right. No. Ramon's voice was sharp. He was afraid. They all were. Because what they saw between us wasn't weakness. It was strength. The kind of strength that comes from recognizing something real in a world built on carefully constructed facades. Outside, rain began to fall, drumming against the coffee shop windows. The sound created a cocoon of privacy around their table, a bubble where truth felt safer to speak. "I had a plan," Anna said finally. "Work hard, stay invisible, build my career step by step. No shortcuts, no complications, no distractions." She looked at him accusingly. "Then you looked at me like I'd been waiting for you without knowing it." He finished her thought, his voice rough. "Like everything. I'd built everything I'd achieved, suddenly felt hollow compared to the way you say good morning." A crash from the counter made them both jump. Danny had dropped a mug, ceramic shards scattering across the floor. The spell was broken, reality rushing back in. "I have an interview next week," Anna said, gathering her courage. "In Boston. A smaller company, but good opportunities for growth." Ramon's face went still. "Boston. 3,000 miles of professional distance." She tried to smile. "Isn't that what we both need? Is it what you want?" The question hung between them, heavy with possibility and fear. Anna thought about her carefully planned life, about the safety of staying within boundaries, about the terrifying thrill of being truly seen. "What I want," she said carefully, "is to succeed on my own terms. To know that any opportunity I get, any position I earn is because of my work, and not because of complications." "Complications." He smiled without humor. "Is that what we're calling this?" "What would you call it?" Ramon stood abruptly, his height casting a shadow across their table. "I would call it the most honest thing in my life. I would call it the reason I just burned down half my professional relationships. I would call it worth every risk, every consequence, every moment of doubt." He pulled out a business card, placing it precisely on the table. "But you're right. Boston is a good opportunity. Safe. Uncomplicated." He turned to leave, then paused. "The card isn't my office number. It's my private line. When you're ready to stop running from complications, call me." Anna watched him walk out into the rain, his figure blurring behind the streaked windows. Danny appeared with a broom, sweeping up the broken mug pieces. "You know," he said conversationally, "some things are meant to break. Makes room for something stronger to take their place." Anna picked up the business card, running her thumb over the embossed numbers. Her phone buzzed with a text from her mother. "Baby, you've been quiet. Everything okay?" She stared at the message, thinking about strength and weakness, about breaking and rebuilding, about the terrifying courage it takes to choose complexity over safety. "Not yet," she typed back, "but maybe that's okay." The rain continued to fall, washing away old boundaries and drawing new ones. In her hand, Ramon's card felt like both an anchor and wings, a promise of something real, if she was brave enough to reach for it. The Boston interview loomed 3 days away, and Anna's apartment looked like a war zone of half-packed boxes and scattered decisions. Her mother's voice echoed through the speakerphone as she folded another blazer. "I don't understand why you're running away, baby. You stood up to those men. You won." "Did I?" Anna sank onto her bed, surrounded by the organized chaos of her life. "Mom, the whole city feels like a minefield. Every recruiter who calls, every LinkedIn message, they all want to talk about Maxwell Industries and Ramon Owen. Nobody cares about my qualifications anymore. And this man, this Ramon—" Her mother paused, and Anna could picture her expression, that mix of concern and knowing that only mothers could perfect. "He's more than just your former boss, isn't he?" Before Anna could answer, her call waiting beeped. Naomi's name flashed on the screen. "Mom, I have to go. Love you." "Anna, wait." Her mother's voice softened. "Remember what your father always says? Sometimes the bravest thing isn't running into the fire. It's standing still long enough to feel its heat." The words stayed with her as she switched calls. "Naomi, turn on your TV, Channel 8, now." Anna scrambled for her remote, clicking through until she found the local news. Her breath caught as Ramon's face filled the screen. He stood at a podium, cameras flashing, looking every inch the powerful CEO despite the visible strain around his eyes. "The allegations of systematic discrimination at Maxwell Industries are being taken seriously," he was saying, his voice controlled but charged with underlying emotion. "This isn't just about corporate governance. It's about creating an environment where talent and dedication matter more than connections and conventions. Where someone can walk into my office by accident and change everything, by simply being authentic in a world of corporate masks. The reporters erupted with questions, but Anna barely heard them. Her heart was pounding too loudly. "Did you know he was doing this?" she asked Naomi. "He's been in meetings with the SEC all week, the investigation into Lawrence and the others. It's bigger than anyone expected. But this?" Naomi's voice held, a mix of admiration and concern. "This is something else. He's not just cleaning house anymore, Anna. He's changing the narrative. Or destroying his career. Maybe both." Naomi paused. "He asked about you, about Boston." Anna closed her eyes, remembering the weight of his business card in her wallet, still uncalled. "What did you tell him?" "The truth, that you're brave, enough to walk away from power plays and politics, that you're smart enough to know when something feels too big to control, that you're strong enough to choose yourself first." Another pause. "And that you're stubborn enough to run 3,000 miles from the best thing that's ever happened to you. It's not that simple, isn't it?" Naomi's challenge was gentle but firm. "You told the board they couldn't use you as an excuse, but isn't that exactly what you're doing with this Boston job, using it as an excuse to avoid something real?" After hanging up, Anna stood at her window watching the city lights flicker to life as dusk settled. Her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Dinner tomorrow. No titles, no companies, no complications. Just two people who can't stop thinking about each other." Ah. Her fingers hovered over the keypad, trembling slightly. Before she could respond, another message came through. "Unless you're afraid of what you might feel when there are no more floors between us." The challenge in his words made her breath catch. She thought about his press conference, about the way he'd looked at her in the coffee shop, about all the careful distances they'd tried to maintain and failed. "Afraid," she typed back. "Of you? I walked away once already." His response was immediate. "And I followed. What does that tell you?" "That you don't like losing." "I don't like pretending. There's a difference." A pause, then 7 p.m. The rooftop garden at the Grand. No elevators involved. Anna stared at the message for a long moment before responding. "One dinner. No promises. I'll take it." She spent the next day in a haze of nervous energy, second-guessing her decision 1,000 times. The Boston interview materials sat accusingly on her kitchen table, a safe harbor in the storm of uncertainty she'd found herself in. At 6:45 p.m., she stood in front of her mirror, scrutinizing her reflection. She'd chosen a deep burgundy dress that hugged her curves without being provocative, her braids swept into an elegant updo. Professional enough for a business dinner, but personal enough for whatever this was. The Grand Hotel lived up to its name, its rooftop garden a hidden oasis above the city streets. Ramon was already there, standing at the edge of the terrace in a charcoal suit that made him look more human somehow, less like the untouchable CEO, and more like a man waiting for a woman he couldn't stop thinking about. He turned at her approach, and the look in his eyes made her glad she'd worn the burgundy dress. "You came." His voice carried a note of surprise, as if he'd half expected her to run again. "I'm leaving for Boston in 2 days, she reminded him, taking the seat he pulled out. "Consider this a goodbye." "Is that what you want it to be?" Before she could answer, a waiter appeared with champagne. Ramon waved him away. "Just water for now. We need clear heads for this conversation." "What conversation is that?" "The one where we stop pretending this is about career moves or corporate politics." He leaned forward, his intensity magnetic. "The one where we admit that what happened at Maxwell wasn't about power or position. It was about two people recognizing something in each other that they'd been afraid to face in themselves." "And what's that?" "The possibility of being real, of being seen." His hand moved across the table, not quite touching hers, an echo of their coffee shop encounter, of being scared out of our minds, because for the first time, the masks don't work. Anna felt her carefully constructed defenses wavering. "You don't know me. I know that you drink your coffee black with 1 sugar because you believe in facing things at their most basic truth. I know that you wear purple when you..." need to feel strong and green when you're missing home. I know that you touch your left wrist when you're nervous, like you're doing right now. She jerked her hand away, startled by his observation. I know, he continued, his voice dropping, that you're brilliant and brave and terrified of needing anyone. I know that you're running to Boston not because you want the job, but because you want to prove you can walk away from this, from us, and survive. Stop, she whispered. I know that when you look at me, you see past the power and the position to the man underneath, and it scares you because you're starting to care about him. You're right, she said finally, her voice steady despite her racing heart. It does scare me, because that man, the one under all the power and position, he's used to getting what he wants, to controlling outcomes, to winning. Not with you. He smiled, a real smile that transformed his face. With you, I'm completely out of control, and for the first time in my life, that feels right. The city, lights sparkled below them, a carpet of stars at their feet. A warm breeze carried the scent of night-blooming jasmine, and somewhere in the distance, a saxophone played a lazy blues tune. I have the interview, she said softly. I know. I need to go. No, he corrected gently. You need to choose. And whatever you choose, Boston, hear me, not me. It needs to be because it's what you want, not because it's what you think you should want. Anna looked at him then, really looked at him. Past the CEO, past the power, past all the layers. Curved protection they'd both built around themselves. She saw the man who'd backed her against the board, who'd exposed corruption to defend her, who'd followed her to a coffee shop to tell her she mattered. And if I choose wrong, then you choose again. He finally bridged the distance between their hands, his fingers intertwining with hers. But first you have to be brave enough to choose at all. The warmth of his touch sent electricity through her veins, making all her carefully constructed arguments feel hollow. In that moment, with the city spread out before them, and his hand, anchoring her to something real, Boston felt less like an opportunity and more like what it really was, an escape. I'm not good at being vulnerable, she admitted, and I'm not good at not being in control. His thumb traced patterns on her palm. Maybe that's exactly why we need each other. The waiter approached again, menus in hand, but Ramon waved him away once more. Some hungers, his eyes seemed to say, couldn't be satisfied with food. And in the growing darkness of the rooftop garden, Anna felt her walls beginning to crumble, one carefully placed stone at a time. The morning after the rooftop dinner, Anna woke to a city shrouded in fog. Her phone displayed a dozen missed calls, her mother Naomi, the Boston recruiter, but her eyes fixed on the single text message that had arrived at dawn. Last night wasn't enough. Meet me at Anderson Park, 9 a.m. No suits, no pretenses. Ah. She glanced at the clock, 8:30. Her practical side screamed that she should be preparing for tomorrow's Boston interview, but her hands were already reaching for jeans and a soft cream sweater. The fog wrapped around her like a cocoon as she walked through Anderson Park's winding paths. The usual morning crowd of joggers and dog walkers was sparse, as if the weather had convinced everyone to stay home. Everyone except... Ramon sat on a bench near the duck pond, dressed in dark jeans and a charcoal Henley that made him look startlingly human. No power suits, no corporate armor. Just a man waiting in the fog. I wasn't sure you'd come, he said as she approached, his eyes taking in her casual appearance with obvious appreciation. I wasn't sure either. She sat beside him, leaving careful space between them. Shouldn't you be handling the fallout from your press conference? The board is in emergency sessions. The SEC has scheduled more interviews. The business world is buzzing with speculation about Maxwell Industries' future. He turned to face her fully. And all I can think about is the way you looked at me last night when I touched your hand. Heat crept up Anna's neck. Ramon. No. He closed the distance between them on the bench. No more careful distances. No more professional boundaries. Just truth. His hand found hers, fingers intertwining with deliberate intent. Tell me you're not feeling this too. Before she could respond, a familiar voice cut through the fog. Anna? They turned to find Naomi standing on the path, workout clothes suggesting an interrupted morning run. Her eyes moved from their joined hands to Anna's flushed face, to Ramon's. Intensity. I should go, Ramon said, but his grip on Anna's hand tightened slightly. No, Naomi's voice was quiet. I should. But Anna... She hesitated. The Boston company called me for a reference check. They're moving up the timeline. They want an answer by tonight. The fog suddenly felt thick, suffocating. Anna pulled her hand from Ramon's grasp. Tonight? Apparently, someone else is interested. In the position. Naomi's meaningful look said everything her words didn't. The corporate world was watching, waiting to see how this played out. After Naomi left, silence stretched between them like a living thing. Ramon stood, pacing the small area in front of the bench. They're pushing because of me. Because of the press conference. Because of us, Anna corrected softly. The woman who walked away from Maxwell Industries' CEO after he challenged the board. It's a story people want to be part of. Is that all this is to you? A story? The raw emotion in his voice made her look up. Ramon had stopped pacing, his body coiled. With tension, in the fog, with the soft morning light casting shadows across his features, he looked simultaneously more vulnerable and more dangerous than she'd ever seen him. You know it's not. Her voice shook slightly. But this, whatever this is between, first, it's too fast, too intense, too real. He knelt in front of her, bringing them eye to level. Anna, I've spent my entire life building walls, creating distance, maintaining control. Then you walked into my office and saw right through every defense I'd constructed. Do you know how terrifying that is? Yes, she whispered, because you do the same to me. His hand came up to cup her face, thumb brushing her cheekbone with aching tenderness. Then stop running. The fog swirled around them, creating a private world where nothing existed except this moment, this choice. Anna leaned into his touch, her heart pounding so hard she was sure he could hear it. I have responsibilities, she murmured. Dreams, goals that don't involve being known as the woman who caught a CEO's attention. You think that's what this is? His other hand found her waist, pulling her closer. Anna, you didn't catch my attention. You woke me up, made me remember what it feels like to want something, someone, more than power or position or control. She placed her hands on his chest, feeling his heartbeat racing to match her own. And what happens when the fog lifts, when reality comes back? Reality. He laughed softly. Reality is the way your breath catches when I touch you. Reality is how much it hurts to watch you walk away. Reality is this right now. No titles, no agendas, just us. Ramon. His name was both warning and plea. Tell me you don't feel it. His forehead pressed against hers. Tell me Boston is what you really want. Tell me you can walk away from this, from us, and I'll let you go. The fog pressed closer, as if the universe itself was holding its breath. Anna closed her eyes, overwhelmed by his proximity, by the scent of his cologne mixed with morning air, by the way her body seemed to recognize his on some cellular level. I can't, she whispered. His kiss, when it came, was neither gentle nor careful. It was revelation and revolution, breaking down the last walls between them with the force of long-denied passion. Anna's hands slid up to his shoulders, pulling him closer as years of careful control shattered in the fog-wrapped morning. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, the world had changed. Or maybe, Anna thought dizzily, it had just come into focus. Boston's still waiting, she said, but her fingers were twisted in his shirt, holding on. Boston will always be waiting. He pressed a softer kiss to her temple. But this is now. This is real. This is worth fighting for. Her phone buzzed, in her pocket, probably the recruiter wanting an answer. The fog was starting to lift, reality seeping back in around the edges of their private world. I'm scared, she admitted. Good. He smiled against her skin. That means you're finally being honest. With yourself, with me, with what we could be. And what's that? Everything. His arms tightened around her. Anything. Whatever we choose. To build together, without flaws or titles or careful distances between us. The sun broke through the fog, casting dappled light across their entwined figures. In the distance, the city was waking up, unaware that in a quiet corner of Anderson Park, two people had just changed the gravity of their worlds. Anna's phone buzzed again, insistent, demanding an answer. But for the first time since walking out of Maxwell Industries, she knew exactly what she wanted to say. Sometimes the bravest choice isn't running away or standing still, it's falling, deliberately and completely, into something real. Maxwell Industries CEO's Park romance exposed. The headline screamed from every news site, accompanied by grainy photos of their fog-shrouded kiss in Anderson Park. Anna stared at her laptop screen, her stomach churning as she scrolled through, article after article, each one spinning their private moment into corporate scandal. Her phone hadn't stopped ringing since the stories broke. The Boston company had politely withdrawn their offer, citing concerns about public relations implications. 3 other potential employers had cancelled interviews. Her LinkedIn profile was drowning in connection requests from journalists. A knock at her apartment door made her jump. She found Naomi standing there, holding 2 cups of coffee and wearing an expression of grim determination. "You look terrible," Naomi said, pushing past her into the apartment. "Have you seen the comments?" Anna collapsed onto her couch. "They're calling me a social climber, a gold digger, an opportunist who stood up to one of the most powerful boards in the tech industry and exposed systemic discrimination." Naomi handed her a coffee. "Who inspired the CEO of Maxwell Industries to risk everything for real change? Who's making people question their assumptions about power, race, and corporate culture? That's not how they're seeing it." "No?" Naomi pulled out her tablet, opening a different set of articles. Business Insider. Maxwell Industries shakeup reveals deep-rooted discrimination. Forbes, Ramon Owens' stand against corporate bias sparks industry-wide examination. The Atlantic, love, power, and the changing face of corporate America. "Love?" Anna choked on her coffee. "Is that not what this is?" Naomi's voice softened. "Because I saw you two in the park, that wasn't a scandal, Anna. That was something real." Before Anna could respond, her phone buzzed with a text from Ramon. "Turn on Channel 8, now." She grabbed her remote, clicking, to the local news. Ramon stood at another podium, but this time his stance was different. Less corporate warrior, more man taking a stand. "Yes, the photos are real," he was saying, his voice steady and unapologetic. "Anna Ellis is not a scandal to be managed or a mistake to be explained away. She is a brilliant professional who chose integrity over advancement, truth over politics, and courage over comfort. Our relationship—" He paused, a small smile playing at his lips. "Our relationship is personal, and I won't apologize for finding something genuine in a world of corporate facades." The reporters erupted with questions, but Ramon raised his hand for silence. "However, this isn't about a romance. This is about systemic issues in corporate America. About qualified professionals being pushed aside because they don't fit traditional power structures. About the cost of maintaining appearances over nurturing talent. Maxwell Industries is changing, and yes, meeting Anna was my wake-up call. But she's not my weakness. She's my reminder of what real strength looks like." Anna's phone buzzed again, her mother this time. "Baby, you better turn on CNN." She switched channels to find a panel discussion already in progress. Unprecedented. In corporate America. A CEO not only acknowledging a relationship with a former employee, but using it to challenge industry-wide discrimination. "They're missing the point," Anna muttered. "Are they?" Naomi crossed her legs, studying her friend. "Tausta, you and Ramon, you're forcing people to confront their assumptions about power dynamics, about workplace relationships, about who gets to write the rules." A sharp knock at the door interrupted them. This time, it was Ramon, looking simultaneously, exhausted and energized. "You shouldn't be here," Anna said, but stepped aside to let him in. The media can wait." He crossed to her in 3 long strides, cupping her face in his hands. "Are you okay?" The tenderness in his touch, the concern in his eyes. It undid her carefully maintained composure. They're never going to let this work. Us. Whatever this is. Then they better get comfortable with disappointment. He pressed his forehead to hers. Because I'm not letting go. Naomi cleared her throat. I should head back to the office. The HR department is drowning in press inquiries. She gathered her things, then paused at the door. Oh, and Anna, check your email. The Women in Tech Leadership Conference wants you to keynote next month. Apparently, you've become a symbol. After she left, silence settled over the apartment. Ramon's hands slid down to Anna's shoulders, steadying her. I never wanted to be a symbol, she whispered. No one ever does. He led her to the couch, pulling her close against his side. But sometimes we become what others need us to be, even if we never asked for it. And what do you need me to be? His laugh rumbled through his chest. Just you. Exactly as you are the woman who walked into my office and changed everything. Anna's laptop pinged with another news alert. She ignored it, focusing instead on the steady beat of Ramon's heart under her ear. The board is splitting, he said after a moment. Half support the changes we're implementing, half are threatening to leave. The shareholders are divided. The media can't decide if I'm a revolutionary or a fool. And you? I've never been more certain of anything in my life. He tilted her chin up, meeting her gaze. This morning, I was in a meeting about quarterly projections. Everyone was talking. Numbers, market share, risk assessment. And all I could think about was how empty that room felt without you in it. Ramon, let me finish. His thumb traced her jawline. I've built my life on control, on knowing exactly what comes next. But with you, I'm learning that some things are worth the risk of uncertainty, worth the headlines and the speculation and the judgment. A sudden burst of camera flashes lit up her windows. Paparazzi had found her apartment. Ramon moved to close the curtains, his silhouette strong against the afternoon light. We could step back, Anna offered. Give it time for the media frenzy to die down. Or, he turned back to her, backlit like an avenging angel, we could show them exactly what real looks like. No hiding, no apologies, no careful distances. Her phone buzzed again. Another interview request, another story to be written about them. But for the first time since the photos leaked, Anna felt something other than fear. She felt powerful, not because of Ramon's position or the media attention, but because she was finally standing in her truth, their truth. No more hiding, she agreed, reaching for his hand. He pulled her up into his arms, his kiss carrying the weight of promise. Outside, cameras clicked frantically, capturing their silhouette through the gauzy curtains. Tomorrow there would be more headlines, more speculation, more judgment. But in that moment, with the late afternoon sun painting them in gold and shadow, none of it mattered. They had found something real in a world of corporate masks and careful distances, and maybe, just maybe, that was the headline everyone needed to read. The emergency board meeting of Maxwell Industries was scheduled for 9 a.m. on a Wednesday. That dawned dark with thunderclouds. Anna watched the weather match her mood from the window of Ramon's penthouse, where she'd been staying since the media discovered her apartment address. You don't have to do this, Ramon said from behind her, his reflection in the glass looking more battle-ready than she'd ever seen him. The board meeting is closed session. You're not required to... Yes, I am. She turned to face him, taking in his impeccable charcoal suit and the tension in his jaw. If they're going to vote on your future because of me, I'm going to be there. Because of us, he corrected, crossing to her. His hands settled on her shoulders, warm through the silk of her burgundy blouse. Whatever happens in that room today, we face it together. Her phone buzzed. Naomi. Lawrence is back. He's gathering proxies from retired board members. This isn't just about Ramon anymore. He's going after everything. Anna showed Ramon the message, watching his expression harden. He was always going to make a play for control, he said. I just didn't expect him to move this fast. What aren't you telling me? Ramon's hands slid down her arms, linking their fingers together. Lawrence didn't just come back with proxies. He came back with proof that I've been investigating board members without authorization, using company resources to dig into their personal lives, their voting records, their discrimination practices, Anna finished. The evidence you used to protect me. to protect everyone they've pushed aside. He released her hands, pacing the length of the window. But Lawrence is spinning it as a violation of corporate ethics, a personal vendetta using shareholder resources. Is he wrong? Ramon stopped pacing, turning to her with an intensity that made her breath catch. About my methods, maybe. About my motives, no. Because the moment I saw what they did to you, what they've been doing to countless others, something broke in me. Something that had been pretending corporate politics was separate from real-world consequences. Thunder rolled outside, the storm moving closer. Anna glanced at her watch. 8:15 a.m. In 45 minutes, they would walk into a room full of people who wanted to destroy everything they'd built. Her phone buzzed again. This time it was her mother. Remember what your father said about fires, baby. But remember this too. Sometimes you need to burn it all down to build something better. A plan began forming in her mind. Call Naomi, she told Ramon. Tell her to bring every HR file from the last 10 years. Every denied promotion, every suspicious termination, every complaint that got buried. Anna, if Lawrence wants to talk about ethical violations, let's talk about all of them. She straightened her shoulders, feeling stronger than she had in weeks. No more shadows, no more hiding. Let's show them exactly what real corporate ethics looks like. Ramon studied her for a long moment, something like awe crossing his features. You really are extraordinary, you know that. No, she smiled, reaching for his hand. I'm just done playing by rules that were designed to keep people like me quiet. They arrived at Maxwell Industries 20 minutes later, the lobby unusually quiet for a weekday morning. Security waved them through without their usual checks. Everyone knew why they were there. Naomi met them by the elevators carrying 2 thick folders and wearing an expression of grim determination. Lawrence is already in the boardroom. He brought lawyers. Good. Anna took one of the folders. So did we. The ride to the 42nd floor felt different this time. No nervous energy, no careful distances. Just 3 people prepared to fight for something bigger than themselves. The boardroom fell silent as they entered. Lawrence sat at the head of the table, flanked by attorneys and old guard board members. His smile was razor-sharp. Mr. Owen, Ms. Ellis, how kind of you to join us for what promises to be a transformative meeting. Oh, it will be transformative. Anna stepped forward before Ramon could speak. Just not in the way you planned. She opened her folder, pulling out document after document. 10 years of buried HR complaints, 23 denied promotions to qualified minorities, 15 suspicious terminations of women who didn't fit the culture, 47 instances of pay disparity that mysteriously disappeared from company. Records. Lawrence's smile faltered. Those records are confidential, like the records of your investigation into my background. Ramon moved to stand beside Anna. The difference is, I was looking for truth. You were looking for ways to maintain power. This is corporate espionage, one of Lawrence's lawyers started, but Naomi cut him off. No, this is corporate accountability. She began distributing copies of the files to every board member. Every document here is official record. Every story backed by data. Every violation documented and dated. Thunder cracked outside, rain lashing against the floor-to-ceiling windows. Anna felt the energy in the room shift as board members began reading, their expressions moving from skepticism to shock to something like shame. You're willing to destroy this company to protect your relationship. Lawrence spat the last word like poison. No. Anna met his gaze steadily. We're willing to transform this company to protect everyone who comes after us, everyone who deserves a chance to succeed based on their talent, not their ability to fit your narrow definition of acceptable. The shareholders will never... The shareholders are already here. A new voice came from the doorway. Olivia Winters, head of the largest shareholder group, stood with her own team of lawyers. And we've seen enough. What followed was corporate warfare at its finest. For 2 hours, evidence was presented, arguments made, power plays attempted, and thwarted. Through it all, Anna and Ramon stood united, their hands clasped beneath the table, anchoring each other through the storm. When the final vote was called, The result was decisive. Lawrence and his allies were out. The old guard had fallen. And in their place. "The board recognizes the need for substantial change," Olivia announced, her voice carrying the weight of authority. "Starting with the immediate implementation of new diversity and inclusion policies." She turned to Anna. "We'd like you to head the initiative, not as a consultant or temporary hire, but as Chief Ethics Officer, reporting directly to the board, not to the CEO." Anna felt Ramon's hand tighten on hers. This was it. The moment when personal and professional collided head-on. "That would make us equals," she said slowly, looking at Ramon. "No more power dynamics, no more questions about influence or advantage. No more flaws between us," he added softly. Lightning flashed outside, illuminating the boardroom in stark white light. In that flash, Anna saw everything clearly. The path that had led her here. The battles fought, the love found, the future possible. "I accept," she said, her voice strong and sure, "on one condition." "Name it," Olivia replied. "Everything we found, every buried complaint, every ignored voice, every person pushed aside, they all get reviewed. Not just statistics in a report, but real cases with real solutions." "That could take years," Lawrence protested from his corner. "Yes," Anna smiled, feeling Ramon's pride radiating beside her. "It could, but that's what real change looks like. Not quick fixes or careful PR, but long-term commitment to doing better." As the storm raged outside, the room erupted in activity. Lawyers began drafting documents, board members made calls, and the machinery of corporate transformation ground into motion. But in the eye of that storm, Anna and Ramon shared a look that said everything words couldn't. They had walked through fire and found not just each other, but a purpose bigger than themselves. And maybe that, in the end, was the greatest love story of all. 6 months after the storm that transformed Maxwell Industries, Anna stood in her new office on the 41st floor, 1 floor below Ramon's, a detail that never failed to make them both smile. The wall of windows offered a different perspective on the city she'd almost left behind, and the morning sun painted everything in shades of possibility. Her desk, once cluttered with buried HR complaints and evidence of corporate misconduct, now held different stories. Files of employees receiving overdue promotions, reports of diversity initiatives bearing fruit, letters from people who'd left the company years ago, now returning to be part of something transformative. A knock at her door pulled her from her thoughts. Naomi entered, wearing the satisfied smile that had become her signature since being promoted to global head of human resources. "The quarterly numbers are in," she announced, dropping a report on Anna's desk. "Employee satisfaction up 40%, retention rates highest in company history, and applications from minority candidates have tripled. And the old guard. Lawrence was just indicted for securities fraud." Naomi's smile turned sharp. "Turns out our investigation opened some interesting doors for the SEC." Anna picked up the report, running her fingers over the Maxwell Industries logo. Sometimes she still couldn't believe how much had changed, how much they had changed in half a year. Her phone buzzed with a text from her mother. "Ready for tonight, baby? Your father's already practicing his speech." Before she could reply, another knock drew her attention. Ramon stood in the doorway, looking as powerful as ever in his tailored suit, but his eyes held the warmth reserved only for her. "Ready for the gala?" he asked, though they both knew it was more than just another corporate event. Tonight, Maxwell Industries would officially launch its foundation for corporate ethics and inclusion, with Anna as its executive director. The same ballroom that had hosted countless deals made in shadows would now shine light on a new way of doing business. "Almost," she turned to Naomi. "Did Maria confirm?" "Front row seat," Naomi grinned. "Our favorite cleaning lady says she wouldn't miss it for the world." After Naomi left, Ramon closed the office door, crossing to Anna with the focused intensity that still made her heart race. "Having second thoughts? About the foundation? No." She let him pull her close, his familiar scent grounding her. "About having our relationship so publicly linked to corporate policy? Maybe?" "Anna." He tilted her chin up, making her meet his gaze. What we have, what we built, it's bigger than us now. Every time someone sees you in this office or just together at a meeting, it challenges their assumptions about power and success and who gets to write the rules. I know. She smoothed his tie, a gesture that had become habit. I just want to make sure we're creating change for the right reasons. The reason is standing right here. His hand covered hers where it rested on his chest. The brilliant, brave woman who walked into my office by accident and made me question everything I thought I knew about strength. The intercom buzzed, her assistant reminding her of a pending video call with the Boston company that had once withdrawn her job offer. They were now partnering with Maxwell Industries on diversity initiatives, another full-circle moment in a year full of them. Go, Ramon kissed her forehead. Change the world, I'll pick you up at 7. The day passed in a blur of meetings and preparations. By the time Anna returned to their penthouse to get ready, the sun was setting over the city, painting the sky in colors that seemed to herald change. Her mother arrived to help her dress, bringing the earrings that had been passed down through generations of strong women. As she fastened them to Anna's ears, her eyes glistened with pride. Your grandmother would have loved this, she said softly, seeing you turn pain into purpose, fear into fuel. I'm not sure she would have approved of how it started, Anna smiled, thinking of that first accidental meeting, all the careful distances that had crumbled. Love doesn't need approval, baby. It just needs courage. The gala ballroom was transformed, like Maxwell Industries itself. Gone were the stuffy corporate trappings, replaced by warm lighting and diverse faces. Employees mingled with executives as equals, each story of change adding to the larger narrative. When Anna took the podium, with Ramon and her parents in the front row, she felt the weight of every journey that had led to this moment. 6 months ago, I walked into the wrong office, she began, earning knowing chuckles from the crowd. I was looking for a temporary job, a safe harbor in a corporate storm. What I found instead was a truth we'd all been dancing around, that real change doesn't come from committees or policies alone. It comes from being brave enough to see people for who they really are, not who we expect them to be. Her eyes found Ramon's in the crowd, drawing strength from his presence. Maxwell Industries isn't just changing its practices, we're changing the conversation about power, about opportunity, about what's possible when we stop hiding behind flaws and titles and start seeing each other as human beings worthy of dignity and respect. The Foundation's first initiative would fund scholarships for underprivileged students entering corporate leadership programs. Its second would provide support for whistleblowers exposing workplace discrimination. Its third, and this was Anna's favorite, would create a mentorship network for employees who felt unseen. After her speech, as the crowd mingled and celebrated, Ramon found her by the windows where they'd shared their first real conversation all those months ago. Dance with me, he said, holding out his hand. Here, now. No more hiding, remember? She took his hand, letting him lead her to the center of the ballroom. Other couples moved aside, creating space for them to sway together under the warm lights. I never thanked you, she said softly, for following me to that coffee shop. I never thanked you, he countered, for walking into the wrong office. Nearby, Naomi danced with Anna's father, while her mother chatted with Olivia Winters about expanding the Foundation's reach. Maria watched it all from her place of honor at the main table, her knowing smile suggesting she'd seen this coming all along. You know what today is? Ramon asked, spinning her gently. 1 year ago exactly, you stepped off that elevator on the 42nd floor. You remember the date? I remember everything about that day, the way you held yourself, the way you refused to be intimidated, the way you saw past everything I'd built to who I really was. Anna laid her head on his shoulder, feeling his heartbeat strong and steady. And who was that? A man waiting to be real, he murmured into her hair. A man waiting for you. The music swelled around them, but they barely heard it. In that moment, they were back in every space they'd shared. His office, the coffee shop, the fog-wrapped park, the storm-lashed boardroom. Every floor they'd navigated, every barrier they'd broken, every careful distance they'd closed. I love you, she said, the words feeling both monumental and as natural as breathing. Not the CEO, not the power, not the position, just you. His arms tightened around her. I love you too. The woman who challenges me, who makes me better, who never needed my help to shine, she just needed me to see her light. Around them, the party continued, celebrating not just a foundation's launch, but a fundamental shift in how power and love could coexist. Tomorrow, they would return to their separate floors, continuing the work of transformation. But they would do it together, proving that sometimes the wrong turn leads exactly where you're meant to be. And in the end, that was their real story. Not about climbing corporate ladders or breaking glass ceilings, but about finding authentic love in a world of corporate masks. About two people who dared to be real in a place built on pretense, and in doing so, changed not just their own lives, but the lives of countless others. As the night drew to a close, Anna and Ramon stood at the windows of their penthouse, watching the city sparkle below. No more floors between them, no more careful distances to maintain. Just two people who had found something genuine in the last place they expected to look. "Ready for whatever comes next?" he asked, his reflection smiling at her in the glass. Anna thought about all the battles still to fight, all the changes still to make, all the lives still to touch. She thought about the long journey from that first wrong turn to this very right moment. "With you?" She turned in his arms, reaching up to trace the smile she'd grown to love. "I'm ready for everything." 2 years later, the 42nd floor of Maxwell Industries looked different in the pre-dawn light. Anna stood in the doorway of what had once been Ramon's office, now their shared space for early morning meetings, watching the city wake up below. Her reflection in the window showed a woman transformed, still wearing her signature blazer, today in deep emerald, but carrying herself with the unmistakable confidence of someone who had found her place in the world. "You're here early," Ramon's voice came from behind her, warm with affection. He carried 2 coffee cups, both black with 1 sugar, a habit they'd somehow merged into sharing. "Couldn't sleep," she admitted, accepting the coffee. Too many memories. He understood immediately. Today marked the 3rd anniversary of her wrong turn into his office, a date that had become something of a legend within Maxwell Industries. Each year they celebrated it differently. The first year had been the foundation launch. The second, they'd returned to Anderson Park, where their relationship had first become public. This year felt different, special. "Have you seen the latest numbers?" Ramon asked, setting a folder on their shared conference table. "The Corporate Ethics Initiative has been adopted by 12 major companies. Boston's implementing it next month." Anna smiled at the mention of Boston, now a partner rather than an escape route. "And the scholarship program?" "First-class graduates next week, full placement rates." He moved behind her, arms sliding around her waist. "You changed everything. You know that?" "We changed everything," she corrected, leaning back against him, "by being brave enough to be real." The elevator dinged and Naomi stepped out, unsurprised to find them already there. "Early meeting with Tokyo in 20 minutes, she reminded them. "But first, happy anniversary. Maria asked me to deliver this." She handed them an envelope. Inside was a photo taken 3 years ago by one of the security cameras. Anna, looking lost but determined, pushing open the door to Ramon's office for the first time. On the back, in Maria's elegant handwriting, "Sometimes getting lost is how we find our way." She knew, Anna said softly. Even then she saw it. "Everyone saw it," Naomi smiled. "We were just waiting for you two to catch up." After she left, Ramon pulled Anna closer, both of them studying the city below. The same view that had once intimidated her now felt like home. In the distance, construction had begun on the Maxwell Foundation's new headquarters, a building designed with transparency in mind, all glass and light and open spaces. "Do you ever wonder," Anna asked, "what would have happened if I'd found the right office that day?" "No," Ramon's voice was certain, "because there was no right office. Every floor, every turn, every careful distance we tried to maintain, they all led here, to us." She turned in his arms, studying the face she'd grown to love more deeply with each passing day. The power was still there, the intensity that commanded rooms and transformed industries. But now it was softened by something else, a warmth, a realness that only she got to see. "I have something for you," he said, reaching into his suit pocket. "I was going to wait until dinner, but..." The small velvet box made her breath catch. Inside wasn't a traditional engagement ring, but something uniquely them, a beautiful Art Deco piece with 2 intertwined keys. "The key card you used that first day," he explained, his voice rough with emotion. "I kept it, had it made into something new, something real." "Like us," she whispered, letting him slide the ring onto her finger. "Like us." The sun broke over the horizon, painting the city in shades of gold and promise. Soon the building would come alive with employees and initiatives, meetings and decisions that would shape corporate America's future. Their phones would buzz with messages, their schedules would fill with appointments, their lives would continue in the beautiful chaos they'd created together. But for now, in the quiet of their shared office, they simply held each other. No more flaws between them. No more careful distances. Just 2 people who had found something authentic in a world of corporate masks, and in doing so, had changed not just their own story, but countless others. The elevator chimed again, the first employees arriving for the day. Ana and Ramon shared a smile, knowing it was time to step back into their roles as leaders and innovators. But first, one last moment of privacy, one last kiss in the office where it all began. "Ready?" he asked against her lips. Ana touched the ring on her, finger feeling the weight of past and future intertwined. "With you, always." And as they turned to face the day together, she knew that some wrong turns were really just the universe's way of pointing you in exactly the right direction. After all, love didn't need flaws or titles or careful distances. It just needed the courage to be real. The end. In between flaws, Ana and Ramon discover that sometimes you have to lose yourself to find your true path. At the most crucial moment in the story, Ana had to choose between her professional security in Boston and the risk of a true love that could change not only her life, but an entire corporate system. Now it's your turn to reflect. Have you ever experienced a moment when you had to choose between staying in your comfort zone or risking everything for something you believed in? How did that decision change your life? Your participation in the channel is very important. Please leave your opinion in the comments. Thank you so much for watching until the end. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and comment your thoughts. Your participation is very important to us. See you next time.